scared to do something that other people might judge you for. The idea of being held back because you're worried that some random person online is going to be like, oh, this is really cringe actually. That's so sad, because it's like you are not letting yourself enjoy something because you're worried about what other people will think. Like, you can't just turn up to your improv group and be like, yeah, I'd like to try this. I want to try improv, because you're in the back of your head being like, oh, but are people going to think it's really cringe? Like, no one is thinking about you that much. Sorry. You're holding yourself back because you're scared of what other people think of you. That's so sad. I'm so sorry. Please don't do that. Getting really into whatever TV series or whatever music, like, if you're just earnestly, unapologetically doing something that you love, it really doesn't matter what anyone else is thinking about it. You're just then focusing on that feeling. You deeply know this is the right thing for me. It does not matter what other people think. If you are able to push past the discomfort of doing something different or doing something that other people find cringe or look down on you for, you do kind of become invincible, because you realize that other people's opinions really don't matter. You can surprise other people. Nothing bad is going to happen if you suddenly decide that you want to dress like really, really colorful. You want to join like an improv troupe. I don't know if you've seen, there was this TikTok of this girl who moved across the country to be with her boyfriend. She like left her city, all her friends. She mentioned that she leaves her improv group. She moves to Texas with her boyfriend, and then he breaks up with her, and she goes then to Florida to live with her mum. People, I mean, aside from, I don't want to get into like that situation because that's awful. It's online. We don't know what actually happened, but based on what she said, that is terrible. And he broke up with her in a letter as well. Like, he passed her a note and she read it, and that's like just bizarre and so disrespectful. But something that a lot of people were picking up on was that she was in an improv troupe, and she mentioned like, I was in this improv troupe and then I left it to move across the country. And people are like, oh, it's so cringe to be in an improv troupe, like, ugh. And I'm like, yeah, I know what you mean, but why are we dismissing something that someone else finds joy in? There's this Ethel Cain passage that I saw, which is all about like irony and like how we can't enjoy things anymore. Like, you can't be earnest. You can't be like, yes, I love this thing. Like, there's no joke. There's no like irony. There's no cynicism. I love this thing. You can't do that anymore because people think it's really cringe. That's so sad. That's so sad, because it's like you are not letting yourself enjoy something because you're worried about what other people will think. Like, you can't just turn up to your improv group and be like, yeah, I'd like to try this. I want to try improv, because you're in the back of your head being like, oh, but are people going to think it's really cringe? Like, no one is thinking about you that much. Sorry. No, but like, you're holding yourself back because you're scared of what other people think of you. That is so, I was going to say pathetic, but that is so sad. I had a comment on one of my recent videos. I will put the thumbnail of the video on the screen, and I will put the comment on the screen, and you can make your own decision. I read this and was like, first of all, it's very probable that a man has written this, like unsolicited advice, inserting your opinion, which was completely unasked for, having to include a put down, but also being like, yeah, you're right. Reeks of toxic masculinity. But I was also like, oh, wow, like they think that I care about something being cringe. That's so interesting to me, because I don't. Like, yes, I think if my friends from school saw this channel, they would be like, oh, what is she doing? Like, why is she doing that? I do not care. This brings me a lot of joy. It gives me a project to work on that I enjoy focusing on. I enjoy trying new things like we talked about. It's really interesting to me. I love being able to have a space to talk about things that other people in my life don't care about. Like, I made a video about John Mulaney's special, Baby J, and I was like, I can't really talk about this with anyone I know because no one really likes, like, no one cares. But online, I know there will be people who like this, and there were. And in the comments then, people were sharing their own experiences with watching the special and how much it meant to them, or what parts resonated with them, or how they watched it with certain family members, and it like sparked an interesting conversation. Like, that's so cool. And so looking through the comments, I was like, this is amazing, right? Like, it's so nice. And the same with any video where I'm talking about like a very specific thing, whether it's like Matthew Perry's book, or people going through like a friendship breakup, and then people sharing their own experiences or what they're going through. I'm like, it's so nice to have a space where you can just share things that are on your heart and other people can resonate with it. The idea of being cringe is like the furthest thing from my mind. Like, why do I care what some random stranger has to say about something that I'm doing? Like, I'm living my life every day, making decisions, thinking about things in terms of my channel. Like, what do I want to talk about? What thumbnail am I going to use? What's the title? What message do I want to share? Like, how do I want to speak to people? I'm thinking about that. I'm not thinking about the random people who are going to come across my channel and not like it. Like, why on earth would I consider that? If you don't like it, it's not for you. I don't care. Like, I'm just going to carry on being me. I'm not going to stop being me just because I'm embarrassed or like, oh, I'm worried about it being cringe. I think it's so sad that that's something that holds people back. I completely understand, because I do feel this way with Instagram, because I know that you can find people through the Instagram algorithm. Like, I have a separate account for my YouTube channel and for the fashion, like my public Instagram, but I'm pretty sure anyone could find me who I'm friends with already on my private Instagram. I am sort of like, oh, and will they think it's cringe? But I'm like, so what if they do? Like, anyone who has the time to be judging other people is clearly either not happy with their own life or they're not doing enough in their own life, right? If you have time to look down on someone else, what? It's kind of that thing as well of someone who is doing well is never going to put other people down. It's only people who either aren't doing what they want or aren't like creatively fulfilled or whatever. They're the ones who are going to be like, what is she doing? That's so cringe. But anyone who's already doing the thing and doing it well, or anyone who's even not doing that but is just like wanting to support their friends, is going to just look at that and be like, oh, you think this is cool, or like this brings you joy, or you're just doing this thing and you're like posting your reels. Oh, cool, right? Like, any friend or person who loves and cares about you is not going to be like, oh, that's so cringe. The idea of being held back because you're worried that some random person online is going to be like, oh, this is really cringe actually. Like, that's so sad. I'm so sorry. Please don't do that. And this, unfortunately, I guess, is maybe a side of like being yourself and learning to express yourself authentically, is that you're going to have to accept the reality that there will be people who don't like you. They see you being authentically you and they don't like you. But again, if you are just being you and you're happy being you, trying your YouTube channel or getting really into whatever TV series or whatever music, like if you're just earnestly, unapologetically doing something that you love, it really doesn't matter what anyone else is thinking about it. You're just then focusing on that feeling. I want to talk about how to show up as your authentic self, be yourself, and express yourself freely. I've been learning to do this through making videos. This is definitely something that you can apply if you make your own content, but I also think in your day-to-day life, what we're going to talk about is going to help you be more you. I want to start by looking at this quote that I saw on Twitter, and it's sort of like a explosion moment of like, wait, what? People say phase, like impermanence means insignificance. Show me a permanent state of the self. We can invalidate our own experiences. You go through a phase of like wearing a certain thing or really liking a certain music. You grow out of that, or that's not as interesting to you anymore. You find something different. You want to try and dress differently. And so we can then look back and invalidate that and be like, oh, that was just a phase. Trivialize it and think that it's not who we are, or not real, or not like an authentic experience, or not valid. I think definitely some things can just be like, you might just be in a phase of listening to like really sad music, or you might be in a phase of wanting to dress really smart. I'm wearing like these really smart, you can't see, I'm wearing these really smart black trousers and I'm trying to dress more smart, but like this could just be a phase. But you don't have to be the same person all the time. If you can get to a point where you know what the feeling is like of you showing up as yourself, then it doesn't matter if we're going with the outfits thing, show up in like a slouchy hoodie, or if you dress up really smart. There will be ways to make that outfit feel like you and be you. I could talk for ages about like different outfits and stuff. That's not the point of this video. I just thought this quote was interesting because we are constantly changing, and it allows us to view different things that we've been interested in, whether you're in like a poetry phase or like you're watching classic films and you're on Letterboxd and writing your reviews and whatever. We can view these phases as not valid once we're through them, but it's like, no, that is a version of you who really loves writing reviews. And maybe this is just me. I can feel guilty because I like start something and then I move on to something else. But it's like, no, we're growing all the time and we need different things at different times. So you may be trying to like escape through watching these films, and then you're trying to connect to something in yourself by writing these reviews. And it doesn't make that experience less valid. But if we're talking about how you get to knowing who you are, getting with that feeling of, oh, this is very me, because who you are will be changing, but there's still a thing of, oh, I'm just being myself here. I'm not worrying about outside opinions or how other people perceive me. I'm just showing up authentically as myself, and this is how it feels to do that. The way you do that is through practice. I know this is maybe not what you want to hear because it means putting yourself in different situations. This is not just something that you can write about or think about or like meditate on. It is requiring action. I guess like most things, like yes, journaling is so helpful and I love it, and it's such a reflective practice, and it can help you spot patterns in your behavior and in things that you're struggling with that you may not be consciously aware of. You're like, oh, I keep writing about this must be a problem. It's such a helpful tool, but it is not going to help you unless you are taking action alongside it or noticing things about it. I mean, obviously it can help as well as like a cathartic writing out all your emotions, that it will help there, but in terms of like making progress with whatever your goals are, it all requires action, it requires practice, and the same thing is true of working out like who you are and trying to show up in that way. And I've kind of been noticing this with my channel. Maybe the last 8 videos I've made, I've been trying to get rid of the rules of what I let myself post. I mentioned briefly, you don't want to be caught up in other people's opinions of you, either of who they think you should be or who you are. You want to be like who you are outside of their opinions, or letting go of what you should do or what other people think you should do or who other people think you should be. Letting go of the rules of all of that and that feeling of being, it's not really being trapped. Like we're so lucky in so many ways, but like feeling of like needing to follow the rules or follow what other people are doing. I've been noticing it in my videos. I've really been trying to push myself, and this is also the reason why I'm not wearing makeup for this video, because I was like, oh, this suits the topic, like showing up as yourself. This is me. You know, I also love wearing makeup, but that's not always me, and more often than not, this is me, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I went through in September, I was very structured with my videos. I planned in advance. I did a lot of how-to videos, and I'm really proud of all of them, and I really enjoyed the process of making them as well. But then when it came to October, I was like, I kind of feel like I've done a lot of the big topics that I wanted to make how-to videos about. I didn't want to be just like repeating myself, and I was like, I want to be sharing something useful. I don't just want to be like going through the motions of like, oh, this video did well, let's do like a follow-up to it. Unless that's something that I feel like, oh yes, I have more to say, like I missed out this point, let's make a whole different video addressing that. When I was thinking about October, I was like, I don't want to just keep making these sit down videos, like list videos. I want to try something different that will be valuable to you watching, to see something different instead of me just sat down talking about certain topics in a very similar way. But I was also like, creatively, I think that will be interesting for me to do as well, because I don't feel like I'm sharing anything new by just doing a sit down list video for every single topic. So then I was like, okay, what can we start doing in terms of showing up as myself? The rules that I'd put on myself were, you have to always show your face in a video, or wear makeup in a video, speak really quickly, or like get through your points quickly so people don't get bored. But I've started in the last few videos, but I kind of did this before, in that this is the reason I've been doing my Little Things episodes, and I started doing them December last year, and I think I've done 12 or 13 of them. I was like, I just want a format where I can sit and talk about things that have been helping me in a way that's not like really focused on retention editing. I trust that people do have an attention span and they can sit through things, and that they can like watch the whole thing for the payoff, as opposed to just like needing to put all of the points in a really quick succession that people like get through, and like, you know, that to me is not helpful, and it's not the kind of videos I like to watch either. Kind of where this started, I guess, is when I was doing the Little Things episode, because I was like, these episodes can be like 20 minutes long. I can go on like different tangents. I'm going to do 3 little things at least every episode. And the most recent episode I did 5, just because they were smaller things. I do, in those episodes, I'm sharing like legitimately what has helped me in the last week, or, you know, depending on when I did the last episode, the last month, like what are little things that have been helping me, because I'm like, these little things have helped me, I know they can help you too. I'd already kind of been doing this, certainly the last week, the videos that I've done, I'm like breaking the rules that I've put on myself and being like, how can I show up as me without those rules, so I can show up with no makeup? Or I'm going to do like a video that seems quite rambly, or that seems like it doesn't have a point, but it's all centered around a bigger point. Like, you don't necessarily have to make the point in the video itself. It can be like implied, or you can include the point in the title. Let other people come to their own conclusion after they've watched the whole video. And I don't know if that's like working, but it's good to try different things. And this definitely feels more me, because it's giving me space to like go off on a tangent, or to like talk about something that I wouldn't really know how to do a how-to video about, but I can talk about it in like, you can't self-care your way out of capitalism. I can talk about these things in that video that otherwise I would be like, where do I even put this? If you are interested in making your own videos and doing content online, this is definitely something that I urge you to do, is to think about like, what rules have I put on myself? What do I say about when I can and can't film? Do I say to myself, oh, I'm feeling sad, I can't film today? Like, you might bring a more reflective energy then. Or do you say to yourself, I have to look a certain way, I have to film certain clips, or I have to get through the points really quickly? Think about how you can go about breaking those rules or trying to make something outside of them and just experimenting and seeing. Like, it may not work, but at least you did something different and you're learning about yourself. And it's, again, through practice, like we're talking about, you're like taking action and then looking at what's happened and being like, okay, how did this work? Like, did I enjoy this? Did this help? Did this resonate? You might be like, well, I don't make videos, so this isn't relevant. But I'm saying I expected a certain reaction when I start doing things. Like, I expected when I was showing up with no makeup, and maybe people think this, but thankfully they've not commented it, you know? Maybe they're like, oh, you don't look like you're presenting well, or, you know, but like, I certainly never think that. I watch different people's vlogs and of course they're showing up wearing no makeup. They're like, good morning, I just woke up, I'm doing this today. I expected a certain kind of reaction, but then that's not happened. And it's the same thing as in real life. We can put expectations on ourselves of how other people will respond, but when it comes down to it, they don't care, right? Like, you might be scared to start your own YouTube channel, for example, because you're like, oh, what will people think? Most people, even if they think, oh, that's weird, they're not like dwelling on it. They might just be like, oh, she has a YouTube channel, cool. Okay. And then they might watch some of your videos and they might be like, oh, I didn't realize this about her, or this is a different side, or this is so cool. Like, they might have those thoughts, but they might just be like, oh, she has a YouTube channel, cool. And then they feel no need to watch any of it. We can sometimes overstate how big this thing is going to be in someone else's eyes, and it comes from fear, right? Because we're like, oh, I'm scared. Like, you're maybe scared to be seen, or scared to be acknowledged, or scared to do something that other people might be surprised by or might judge you for. But if that's what you want to do, it's going to be really rewarding for you, and it really doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And it's allowing you to connect to that feeling of being you, and of like, oh yes, I like this, or this is who I am, or this is who I am discovering that I am, right? We talked about it being like impermanent. There's like, your sense of self is always evolving, whether it's to do with the things that you read, or the way you think, or the way you interact, or the experiences you're having. You are always changing. By doing things, you're learning. If you just keep showing up, you'll learn like, oh, this resonates with me. This is easy for me to do. I really enjoy this thing. And that kind of leads us on to the next point, which is not only to do with taking action, learning through practice who you are, but also looking at what you enjoy and trying different things. Do you like writing? What do you like to read? What films do you like to watch? Do you like wartime dramas? Do you prefer watching TV because you can get to know the characters better? Do you like really silly things? Do you like really like abstract things? I really want to watch Asteroid City, but I don't know if I'll like it. I have an expectation that I will like it, but maybe I won't. But I think about something like Scott Pilgrim, which is really, I don't know the word, like quirky or weird, but I love that film. And I know it's like a cult classic, so lots of other people like it too. But just because other people like something, it doesn't mean that you have to like it. Or just because something's popular, you can form your own opinions, which is so obvious to say, but we can get caught up in, again, what is expected of us or what other people think we'd like. Like, I remember sending my Spotify Wrapped last year to my sister, and she was like, why is Doja Cat in your top 5? And I was like, yeah, I listened a lot to her music this year. It's the same as if you know you're doing the right thing. It doesn't matter anyone else's opinions. Like, if you've made a decision, like my sister decided to go traveling, and I'm sure like you have your own doubts, or you have points where you think like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing here? What have I done? But like, when you've made a decision for yourself and you're like, I'm doing this is the right thing for me to do, other people's opinions then become irrelevant, because you know in your like heart or in your soul, you deeply know this is the right thing for me. It does not matter what other people think. And this is kind of a difficult place to get to, because other people's opinions do matter. Like, we do need people's support. We need people around us. Peer pressure is really powerful. But for example, like when I go into the supermarket, I'm wearing a mask. I know there'll be people who look at me and are like, oh my gosh, is she sick? Like, what's she doing? But it's like, I know I'm doing the right thing for my health, for my family. I know I'm doing the right thing. I get that the peer pressure is really big. It is definitely easier sometimes to just go along with the crowd than to do your own thing. But if you are able to push past the discomfort of doing something different, or doing something that other people find cringe or look down on you for, you do kind of become invincible, because you realize that other people's opinions really don't matter. It's like, am I going to let this random grumpy man who makes a comment about my mask, am I going to let him ruin my day? No. The idea that I would is laughable. Am I going to let this person who's commented saying I'm cringe, am I going to let that ruin my day or stop me from posting videos? Absolutely not. Like, Again, like, what? That's not even a question. I'm doing what I know is right for me, what I enjoy. Or with the mask thing, I know I'm doing the right thing. I know, like, you cannot convince me that I'm doing the wrong thing for me or for my family. Like, my health is the most important thing to me. Other people's opinions, it's like, okay, I can see you're upset, but like, I'm not, you know, that's nothing to do with me. That's your reaction. And I keep seeing this quote on Pinterest about being less reactive and how that is where your power is, because it's like, don't give them the reaction that they want. Just be like, oh, wow, you're having a very strong reaction to something that's not that deep, right? Like seeing me walk down the high street in a mask or in the supermarket in a mask is not that deep, and yet some people get so riled up about it. Seeing me posting videos with a cringe thumbnail, I'm like, it's not that deep. Like, you need to chill out. And the reason that I'm dwelling on this point is because I feel like it can be a huge barrier to being our true selves, because we'll be like, no, like I care so much about people's opinions, but like, use whatever helps you, whether it's this knowingness of like trusting yourself, which I think I'm going to do a whole video on because it's such an important topic. I keep saying that, but I'm waiting for the right time. The right time will arrive. Whether it's something like that, or the other thing is thinking like, well, in 100 years we'll all be dead. So like, yeah, it's uncomfortable for me to post this video online, even though it's what I really want to do. It's uncomfortable for me to wear this mask in the supermarket, even though I know I'm doing the right thing. But, you know, in 100 years, nothing's gonna matter anyway. Like, maybe that's too morbid. I've been having like a mini existential crisis, an afternoon of sort of existential dread on Saturday, because I was listening to Halsey's album, and I also saw the report about 3.2 degrees warming, which makes life on Earth uninhabitable, and that'll be happening in the next, like, it's already happening, and unless we do something drastic, there's nothing we can do to change that. Things in the next 50 years on this planet are pretty bleak. So I had a very mini, you know, existential moment on Saturday. That kind of perspective, it's like, okay, what matters more here? Me feeling uncomfortable and just conforming, or me being like, no, I know who I am, I know what's right for me, I'm gonna do this thing even if it feels uncomfortable, or even if it feels cringe, or even if other people disagree. Tapping into that feeling of inner strength. And I guess some of this for me comes from the fact that I am sober over 2.5 years. I learned a lot about myself through that process, still learning how to deal with things and be sober, because it's also to do with your emotional reaction to things. But I know that makes me weird, or I know that people have a certain idea of addiction, or they can like pity me or look down on me, but I know through my experience, like, I know what it's like to be me. I know what it's like to see people recover. Anyone who like looks down on that or thinks that it's a moral failing or whatever to be struggling with addiction, like, you're just very lucky that certain things haven't happened to you, because almost everyone that I've spoken to who's dealing with the same disease has had really awful things happen to them in childhood or in early adulthood or throughout their life, right? Like, this is a way of coping with things that have happened to you. This is not like some moral failing. If anything, society is in a way failing you, and it's then becoming like a vicious circle. But I think that also helps me, and this idea of like your story being your strength. It's like, yeah, I can just be me. Like, this is not the life I would have chosen for myself, but I'm going to own it and be like, yeah, this is who I am, right? I have been through this thing happened to me, I'm now here. Like, I don't have to be embarrassed about that. But again, that comes through practice, and it is uncomfortable, but it's possible for everyone to do this and to learn how to be your authentic self and to like embrace who you are and to express yourself freely. There is so much, and I feel like we've only kind of scratched the surface, but I don't want this video to be too long. But I hope what I've said here has encouraged you. You can be who you want to be. You don't have to like conform to what other people are doing, or you don't have to care so much about what other people think. Like, it is a process, but you can work on this every day, right? Like, just in small things. Post a reel, see what happens. You may have built up stuff in your head. Nothing bad is going to happen. And if it does, you will learn how to deal with it. If someone leaves a horrible comment, you can just be like, oh, they're having a bad day, poor them. It's not that deep. I feel like I'm sharing a mixed message here of like, you need to be really earnest, but also being like, it's not that deep. But I feel like that is what it is, right? Like, be you, be really intentional about being you and doing what you want to do and trying to not care what other people think. But also, like, it's not that deep, and like, have fun and be silly. I hope this discussion has helped you, has prompted some introspection. Please try and let go of what other people think, because it is just holding you back. please try and be you. Take one little step. You will see that nothing bad happens and it's actually amazing. And you will get to a point where you're like, oh, I can just be me. And you do feel invincible. It's really cool. I've done a video about comparison in the past, so I will leave that. I will also leave my how to validate yourself playlist. So if you are starting this process of like learning who you are, or trying to be yourself more, but you're also dealing with those feelings of discomfort that we talked about, of being like, oh my gosh, what do people think, or whatever, those videos about validating yourself will really help, because you're like, no, I'm just being me. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. God bless. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you in the next one.